Great, good to be here. And you've had my title there, slightly pretentious, which is good to be provocative. The title of the talk is Secular Transcendence, Signs of the Almost Sacred in Contemporary Art. So you've had a great series of talks over these weeks about different aspects of how faith and art relate, different art forms, different art medium. What's the main title? The Way of Beauty. The Way of Beauty. So all I'm going to do is very simple. I'm going to look at, with you, at 5 contemporary works of art which I've experienced and been to visit here in London in the last few years, and just to share my responses to them, and to circle around this theme of what does it mean to discover the transcendent within contemporary art. So let's just go through them, and just I've got pictures of them, and you can see, share some of my responses, and then at the end some of your own responses as well, I hope. So the first one is Julian Opie, Shider Walking, 2015, in Carnaby Street. It's actually Broadwick Street, just off Carnaby Street, and it's there permanently now. And it was part of the 2016 Lumiere exhibition as well. So have some of you seen this? Have you walked down Carnaby Street? So I've got the video. This was done on my mobile phone. So there she is. We're in Carnaby Street looking over to Broadwick Street, and she just walks. That's the end of that one. Let me do my other video. This is a bit closer, I think. And there's something hypnotic about it. Sorry, who has seen this? Well, you must go, right? It's very easy. Carnaby Street. And she just walks and she walks and she changes with the light, and you can imagine how she glows in the dark, and life goes on, and there she is walking. Okay. And this, technically, just to get the medium correct, it's a double-sided LED monolith, and you can see it's a walking portrait, a simplified, slightly cartoon, slightly abstract figure. There's a fascination with the human figure here. A stylized human being is almost pop art. It's like the famous Antony Gormley, but not sculpture. And in fact, Julian Opie paints human figures in slightly stylized black lines with very clear colour planes, like pop art. And a longish quotation here from the artist. I wanted to draw people just the way they look walking down my street, any street. I asked random people to spare me 20 minutes and be filmed walking on a treadmill. I filmed at 50 frames a second, twice the normal film speed, and set about drawing each frame in a pared down drawing style derived from signs and symbols, ancient and modern. I built a display cabinet using LED technology, usually seen on billboards and information panels. You can see it there. I found a public spot and placed the object on a plinth like a bronze statue of a civic hero to stride endlessly as a living drawing and as part of the crowd. Full stop. So there's a very explicit connection here with heroic portrait statues. Heroic public figures striding through our public spaces, but literally walking here. But this is an everyman or an everywoman figure, an anonymised person based on anonymous people. My reactions. Let's give you another shot there. There we go. The beauty and simplicity of the figure. Just, here is an everyman. This is a medieval term, isn't it? Everyman. Every man, every woman, every person. The human figure representing one and all. Here is a human being representing all of us at the centre of art, the centre of Carnaby Street, at the centre of London, at the centre of the world. Come on in, you're welcome. Welcome, come on in, have a seat. It's the human person at the centre of our artistic representation, at the centre of the world. I'm being very London-centric here, aren't I? Isn't this something perennial, almost eternal? To draw the human figure, the stick man, the stick woman, the earliest cave art, the human figure, the simplicity of the human portrait. But also, this is a symbol of walking. The title, Scheide walking. To amble. Some of you non-English speakers wouldn't know this slightly nuanced word for walking. You amble, you go for an amble. It's a noun as well. It's to go for a walk, unrushed, and not quite knowing where you're going. You're strolling. And in this figure, I think, there's a peacefulness, almost a kind of recollection. She seems to me peaceful, unfazed by those around, contented, almost a monad. There's not much community here. She's walking through the crowd. She can't talk. She's like us when we have headphones on, walking down the street with our iPhones. It's nonchalant. It's not heroic, but I would say, again being a bit pretentious, but I do mean it, there is a heroism in this nonchalance. Almost too difficult to say. Let me say that again. There is a heroism in this nonchalance. Nonchalance is to be casual and uncaring and undramatic and unheroic, but there's something quite purposeful and peaceful and self-contained about this casualness. I think it's also a comment on the city, on London. London, as you know, is one of the cities that has the fastest walking rate in the universe. We're always moving. When I ask students, what do you think of London? They very often say, it's so quick, the pace is so quick, people walk so fast here. The city moves, there is a purposefulness about it. When I go home to my family home in Hertfordshire, I'm walking twice as fast as everyone because I'm obsessed with walking up Tottenham Court Road, and I look weird. I look like a Londoner because everyone else is very relaxed and I'm walking as if there's a bus to miss. Also in this figure, there's something anthropological. This person, the human being, we are bipedal. This defines us. We stand up on two legs. We're moving to survive. And there's also something here about life and time and letting go. This figure is never in the same place. They're somewhere for an infinitesimal moment and then they move on. So again, I don't think I'm reading too deeply. This is almost like a pendulum, isn't it? That never stops moving. It's like a sand clock. The sand is flowing. There's something about transience and time and letting go here. And it's almost like a memento mori, those paintings from the late Middle Ages and the early Renaissance, where you have a skull or a sand clock on the desk to remind you that life is passing. And also, she's going somewhere. We don't know where she's going, but you could say she's on pilgrimage. This is a perennial theme, to be on pilgrimage. The Hajj. Many of us were in Lourdes this summer. Many of us were in Walsingham on pilgrimage. Some of you have been on the Camino to Compostela. Ryanair, EasyJet. You can go very easily to most places now. You can go home. Many of you in London are not at home. You're away from home. You're looking forward to going home at Christmas. Pilgrimage. To go to a holy place and come back. But another word, slightly different, is the theme of quest. Is to find something and maybe to stay. So we don't know if she's going on pilgrimage in order to come home, or if she's left home and is going on a quest to take up a new life. This is one of my favourite films, Close Encounters. He goes on a quest to find the spaceship. Does he go home? No, he gets in the spaceship and flies off. There's a newness. And also, this is, forget the figure, this is about technology. This is a work of art in electronics, in electrics. There's something permanent. It will outlast us, but it's also fragile. Something so modern, this will not last as long as the Greek and Egyptian sculptures, will it? Something will change. The electricity circuitry will change. And finally, this is about meaning. Who is she? Who are we? What does she want? Where is she going? Yeah. Random thoughts. These are genuine thoughts. I stand there like a zombie with people walking around me, and I'm looking at this statue, this figure, for 5-10 minutes, and I'm thinking all this. I don't think I'm imposing anything on it. The artist is quite consciously, explicitly, in a tradition of human, public, figurative art. And all these questions have been raised by human, public, figurative art. Who are we? Where are we going? What is time? What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life? What is it to be human? Only I think there are extra layers here because of the movement and the everyman figure. Okay. Have I got any more pictures? Oh, there she is in the dark. Yeah? We could go there tonight and have a look after our... We should have a pilgrimage, shouldn't we? And I've shown the videos. Okay. My second work of art. Did any of you see this? Right? This is by one of my favourite artists, Mark Wallinger. We could do a session just on his work, and I did think of that actually. This is his statue, Ecce Homo, from 1999. Sorry, I'm saying whenever did any of you see this? This is already 19 years ago, isn't it? Yeah, you were not going to art lectures 19 years ago, most of you. 20 artists. So this is the fourth plinth, Trafalgar Square. Let me show you the next picture. There we go. That's a good picture, isn't it? Yeah. The fourth plinth on the north-west corner of Trafalgar Square, just next to the National Gallery, underneath Nelson's column, has been empty for decades. And in 1999 or 8, the year before possibly, 20 contemporary artists submitted ideas for the fourth plinth to put a temporary artwork there. And it's amazing that Mark Wallinger's Ecce Homo was chosen. I think it's amazing that the committee chose this. This is a life-sized statue of Jesus Christ being presented to the crowds by Pontius Pilate on Good Friday. Sorry, it's Maundy Thursday. Holy Week. Here is Jesus then. His trial, Ecce Homo. This is the man. Behold the man from the Scriptures. And by putting Jesus Christ on the plinth, life-size, in the middle of Trafalgar Square, we become part of the crowds looking at Jesus, transported 2,000 years ago. So this is not just sculpture, this is conceptual art. This is, how does the work of art relate with the environment, with the context, with the audience, the viewers. It's so clever because it's life-size. Any other artist would have done a figure, and you look at the other figures on the other plinths and they are hyper life-size. When you do a public work of art like this in a grand space, you never do a life-size figure because the life-size figure looks too small and cramped and crushed, especially on that plinth. Yeah? Here with the close-up he looks heroic, but from the distance, especially from behind, you can see he's too small. He's just a human figure. A tiny and vulnerable human being on the edge of an 8-metre plinth. And for that reason, I think, and the artist thinks, it's more powerful. because this shows not the magnificence and grandeur of a Greek god, but the humility of Christ. A human being on a plinth, beside the scale, the power, the pomposity, the grandeur of the rest of the plinths and the statues and the whole square, and with Nelson towering above him. Richard Dormant, the art critic, wrote in the Telegraph, quote, "What Wallinger has really done is to turn Trafalgar Square into something akin to a meditation on the transience of earthly things." There's a feeling that it's not the fourth plinth. It's not meant to be here. There's some kind of mistake. You can't see him very clearly. And if you're in Trafalgar Square, you think, and I remember being there, I went there days after days to meditate on this. You stand there and you think, hang on, I heard there's a new statue on the fourth plinth, but where is it? Have they taken it away already? And then you look and you see, oh, there it is. So you have to pay attention. Do you see? I spent hours walking round and round that square from different perspectives in 1999, finding the figure and losing him again. Because from one angle, suddenly, you see the people behind in the terrace in front of the National Gallery, and they kind of, in your view, they're swarming around him. They're not on the plinth, but you lose the figure. And then you go up to another angle and you're in the National Gallery looking down into Leicester Square, and you can't see him because you just see the crowds, and this figure's lost. He's one figure among many, and you see the symbolism there. He's just a human being with us, lost in the crowd and then exposed anew. If you like, there's a message, inverted commas. A single human being is more important than all of the pomp and ceremony and stonework around. Being human is more important than what you achieve as a human being. This is about the ordinariness and therefore the dignity of being human. And of course, let me go to a close-up here. There's a political message. There we go. This is about injustice and power. Again, isn't it amazing that the committee to put the first ever statue on the fourth plinth said, we are going to put a torture victim at the centre of London. Not a duke or a general or a monarch. A victim of torture, a political prisoner, is put at the centre here. And isn't it wonderful that Amnesty International last year took this statue and put it outside St Paul's Cathedral to give it a second run in London. Powerlessness at the centre, not power. Or powerlessness at the centre of the places of power. There's a political message, but there's also a moral message. This is about humility, acceptance, peace. Do you see the peacefulness in the figure and the glance and the bearing of Jesus in this statue? I don't think Mark Wallinger is naive to just spiritualise it and say, oh, Jesus was so holy and accepting that he didn't suffer. That's nonsense, of course, and it's not what the artist's intention is. But there is a spirituality about this figure. Jesus is more than just a victim. He's more than just a political figure or a broken political pawn. He is a man who's been broken. So this is about suffering and human woundedness and violence and evil, but there is a sense of centeredness in this figure, which I think would have been true of Jesus. He was carrying our sins. He was bearing the cross. He went willingly to his death. Again, it's not to spiritualise the suffering away, but it's to say within that suffering there was a dignity and a peace and a purposefulness about our Saviour. And look, there is, going even further, a beauty about this figure, isn't there? I think. It is beautiful. I saw this same figure at the Venice Biennial in 2001, because Mark Wallinger was the English artist at the Venice Biennial. And he put it not on the plinth, but in the centre of a room about the size of this conference room, bigger. But you could walk around it, you could touch it, and it gave it a whole different perspective. Here is the human body, sanded polyester resin, classical yet modern, glorious yet broken, obscure yet shining with the beauty of the artwork. There is a beauty about the human figure, even in its brokenness. And, let's not forget, this is not just a man, a person, a political prisoner, a beautiful figure of art. This is Jesus Christ. So for Christians to have on the fourth plinth the image of Christ, and to show us and to show to the world the humanity of Christ, like we would in a passion play in the Middle Ages and even today, when Jesus Christ is taken out onto the streets, into the square. Wallinger described in 1999 himself as a former atheist and now an agnostic. That's what he said. I don't know what he believes now. But he said, speaking about the significance of this figure for the millennium, he said, quote, "It struck me too that it's the millennium, and yet everyone's rather squeamish about mentioning Christianity, which seems odd." This is an agnostic speaking. So I wish this was the permanent statue on the fourth plinth. There have been some magnificent statues and been some terrible ones in the last 19 years, but this is without doubt the best, the most successful, the most moving. Right, there's another picture. My third work of art. This is called Shibboleth, or better known as The Crack, 2007 to 8 at Tate Modern in the Turbine Halls. Did you see this?
Yeah.
Did you see the Wallinger?
Yeah.
Lovely. We've got some people here who were not born 19 years ago. I'll ask you about your perceptions at the end. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you, but I'll keep the flow going. So this is, again, I'm biased because I'm picking my favourites, but this is the greatest of the Turbine Hall exhibitions at Tate Modern. That's a close-up. I'll just take you through. That's a semi-close-up. I'll flick between these, yeah? There it is, a crack, a cut in the floor, which stretches, as you can see, from the top of the turbine hall. You see how deep it is there, in the bottom area? All the way to the bottom of the turbine hall, through the two halves, and under the bridge in the middle. Let me leave it there for the minute. It's a crack in the floor that starts as a hairline crack at the top of the slope. It fractures open and goes deeper and deeper, and it splits into different veins, and by the bottom, the flat part of the bottom hall, it's like 3 feet deep in parts. It's incredibly clever, because an artist was asked to put some artwork in the hall, and instead, in effect, she took something away from the hall. Yeah? This is Doris Salcedo, a Colombian artist. So not to add something, but to take something away. A work of art that is an absence, not a presence. After she'd finished, there was less in the hall, not more. I just found that interesting philosophically. She spoke about it explicitly in political terms. She said, quote, "It represents borders, the experience of immigrants, the experience of segregation, the experience of racial hatred. It is the experience of a third world person coming into the heart of Europe. For example, the space which illegal immigrants occupy is a negative space, and so this piece is a negative space." This is her own interpretation of the work. She said that this is in effect an attack on Western modernity and civilization, which she believes is built on racism, exploitation, colonialism, class. Hence the title Shibboleth, which, if you remember, in the Bible and therefore in Western culture has come to mean a word or a phrase that identifies you as an outsider because of the way you pronounce it. So I say to you, will you please say this word, like Newman House, and you say Newman House, and I can tell by your accent whether you are an insider who belongs here or someone who's just trying to say this word or comes from a different culture because you pronounce vowels or consonants in different ways. So a shibboleth is a word that allows me to identify you as an outsider and therefore to exclude you. This is the point of the artwork in the artist's own account, that our culture is built on lies and exclusion, and it's created divisions that are insurmountable. She wants to burst the bubble. She's a guest in Tate, but she wants to attack the grandeur and monumentality, the pomposity, the hidden exclusion of Tate Modern. It's so clever, she's attacking the Tate Modern project itself. Oh, here are we, aren't we wonderful, with our London art world and our wonderful new art space, the greatest space in the world, and she's bursting the bubble. She's in effect attacking Western culture. She's attacking the people who funded her to come in and do this. She's saying this is just a pile of bricks. She's biting the hand that feeds her. Of course there's a danger of hypocrisy in this. Of course there is. She's an artist enmeshed in the Western art world. But she's saying, what were the costs of this culture? The good things that you have, art, beauty, money, luxury, leisure, education. Here are we in higher education. What are the costs of this culture? Okay, that's the big political statement that she's making. But clearly, you don't need me to say this, there's so many paradoxes here, because this is a work of art. This is a work of art. And some of it is not a crack. So you need to go and do the research. How did she make it? Some of this is not cutting into the floor. It's laying an extra layer on top of the floor, an artificial floor, and then cutting into the artificial floor that she's just created. You can see the lines carefully. And so the floor beneath, some parts of it remained fully intact, and other parts she cut out bits of the floor and replaced artificial cracked floor in it. You see? So she wasn't actually attacking the foundations of Tate Modern any more than she was attacking the foundations of Western modern art. The floor of Tate Modern, especially the upper part, remained fully intact. She's complicit in this culture. She knows this. She's not stupid. She's playing. On the one hand, you can say she's succeeded because she's allowed us, as I've just said, to question the culture. On the other hand, you can say she's failed. She's taken the money, I presume. She's taken the sponsorship that allowed her to do this, even if she didn't take any personal money. She's part of the business system that's sponsoring Tate Modern. She's part of this machine of contemporary art and the art world of London and international geo-art. And yes, she did break into some of the floor, but it was fixed as soon as she moved out. And she's left a scar. If you can go there, you can still see the lines in the floor where the floor was cut and where the blocks were taken out. But it's not there anymore. So it's not a crack in the ground. It's not the San Francisco earthquake. It's not overwhelming us. It's controlled. Children play in it and skipped over it. And it was left there in the floor, but then people started falling into it, breaking legs and things, so they put loads of warning signs up. You know, fluorescent signs saying hazard. And and people with fluorescent jackets walking around making sure that no one got hurt. Health and safety moved in to take control of this apparent uncontrol. So lots of paradoxes and contradictions. But let me go deeper as a philosopher. Existentially, I found this incredibly moving. About not an attack on culture, but a question of life. This made me think of natural disasters. I've already mentioned the San Francisco earthquake and many others. It made me think of human suffering, of fragility. It made me think of 1,000 disaster movies. It makes me think today of the fires in California. It made me think, standing there in Tate Modern, of the precariousness of life, the fragility of life, and not just in Christianity or Judaism, but in so many religious cultures, the theology, the worldview of the underworld, Sheol, that death is beneath us physically, symbolically. The abyss. This is the security of the floor opening up into the abyss, the chaos of the book of Genesis reasserting itself. The Spirit of God, remember, in the beginning of Genesis, hovers over the darkness, the void, the Hebrew, the tohu wavohu. This is the terror of formlessness and chaos. And remember, the Pentecost picture that we used to have up in the chapel was in the Eastern tradition, where you have a circle of order with King Cosmos in the centre against a black background which represents the chaos which the order of Cosmos has overcome. But the chaos is still there in the background. This is about the judgment in Numbers chapter 16, where Korah and his companions rebel against Moses, and the ground literally opens up to swallow them and take them to Sheol. Just look at that crack in the floor. Let me go back to the one that... Do you see that? Yeah? Get close. It's scary, isn't it? But this is about the closeness of chaos and terror and darkness, but it's also about for us, it's about the redemption as Christians. It's not just that the monsters of the underworld are rising up, but it's, from a Christian perspective, that the gates of the underworld are thrown open. The tomb is split open, isn't it? The veil of the temple is torn asunder. So the idea of splitting and cracking and tearing for the Christian has a positive meaning as well as a negative one. Yeah. The doors of the tomb of the underworld are opened so that we can be freed from Sheol and rise up with Christ in the resurrection. And the veil of the temple is torn open so that there is no barrier between heaven and earth, between the divine and the human anymore. All of this came to me as I was wandering around Tate Modern 11, 12 years ago. For me, this is the sadness of these contemporary installation arts, that they're not there anymore. But then actually that's part of the glory of them as well. Okay. My fourth work of art, just two more, 4 and 5. There he is. This is Michael Landy. Did you go to this, Patrick and Clara? Breakdown. This was when C&A was closed on Oxford Street in late 2000. In early 2001, Michael Landy did a performance artwork for 2 weeks in February called Breakdown. Okay, what happened? The artist Michael Landy, he gathered all of his possessions, everything he owned, into this space. Imagine the whole floor of a department building, huge shop floor, at 499 Oxford Street near Marble Arch. Oh, it's now Primark, sorry. Yeah, it's the present Primark. He spent the previous 3 years cataloguing all 7,227 of his possessions. From postage stamps, his passport and birth certificate, to food, to clothes, including his father's 1970s sheepskin coat, to the works of art that he owned, works by Tracey Emin and Damien Hirst, to his car, a Saab 900 Turbo 16S. The work was arranged. There's the book that lists the work. The work was arranged into 10 categories. There they are. Artworks, clothing, electrical, furniture, kitchen, leisure, perishables, reading, studio, and 10th, an individual category for his car, V for vehicle. Then all 7,000 plus items were all destroyed in a 2-week period in a work of performance art where the public could watch them being destroyed. The process of destruction was like the reverse of an industrial assembly line, with items circulating in yellow trays on a 160-metre long figure-of-8 conveyor belt. There it is. 10 workers systematically removed each item from the conveyor belt and reduced it to its basic materials by smashing, shredding or pulverising. The work attracted 45,000 visitors. The resulting bags of granulated rubbish weighed nearly 6 tonnes and were recycled or sent to landfill. None was exhibited or sold. Landy's full inventory was published as a 300-page volume, Breakdown Inventory, in 2002. Michael Landy, quote, "Most people could just about give up the flat-screen television and the DVD and the digital camera. But when it came to the love letters and the photographs, that was more difficult." This was a London event. I was just ordained a priest and back in London at this time. It was a moment in time because C&A was closing down. What were my reactions and what was it about? Well, partly, there is a geeky fascination in lists. Right? There's just one little selection of lists, inventory. You spent hours there watching the list, looking at the list. What did he own? We all like itemising things. And there it was on the wall. Big and small, important and unimportant. It was a meditation on what I have and therefore who I am. I'm going to take the list off the board, otherwise you'll get distracted reading it. You see him and you see ourselves. You wonder at what he has, an individual human being, and what we have. It's fun and it's profound. It's a comment on consumerism, isn't it? On possessions, on possessiveness. The ultimate irony of breakdown, says Richard Dormant, the art critic, is that as soon as it ends, Landy will have turned himself into the ideal consumer. A man who needs to be sold new underwear, pyjamas, shoes, toothbrush, hairbrush. It shows the possessiveness, the consumerism of everyone, and also our need for objects and possessions. But also the title, Breakdown. Aha! It's also about emotional breakdown. When we lose things, we lose meaning. Anomie. Self-harm is to let go of the things that are important to us, including our own physical reality. Or is it about the breakdown that will occur when we finish and have nothing left, when we lose our own possessions, when we lose our loved ones? Is this about grief and loss? It's certainly about loss. Is it also about regret? Did he regret it the minute he'd finished? It's about a meditation on the self. Am I this? Am I more? Am I still me if you take everything away from me? Well, yes, but no. It's an experiment. But it is a loss. I can't pretend I'm the same me if you strip me of everything I have. This is, for a Catholic, part of our teaching about the right to private property, which is a core part of Catholic social teaching. And it's not about free market economics versus socialism. Catholic theology advocates a right to private property, because if you don't have the right to private property, you can't defend yourself against the injustice of others. If I have a right to take away from you everything, if you don't have a right to anything, what are you left with? Your human dignity partly depends on you having things. Not because you're greedy, but because you're human. If nothing is yours, if everything can be taken away, then you actually have no protection and no rights. Human rights, in part, depend on property rights. It's quite profound and simple, but it's true. It's not an absolute right, but it is a right. It's one reason we as Catholics have been against extreme forms of communist thought, which would say that everything is about collective possession. We do believe in the universal destination of goods, which means that the gifts of creation are meant for everyone. But we also believe, as I've said, in the right to property and possessions. It's dangerous to lose everything, and it's wrong to take everything from someone. We call to mind images of people being stripped, don't we, and denied their rights. This is also about renunciation. Renunciation as a political act, renunciation as a spiritual act. He's doing no more than what religious people do every day. Monks, hermits, nuns, people who have taken secular vows of poverty, they've given up everything. They've itemised things. Some monks and nuns to this day, maybe Sister Caroline, I don't know, have to itemise the possessions that you still have in order to show to your superior what belongs to you, and to be truly free, so that the superior can say to you at the end of the year, well, do you really need this? Are you willing to let go? You've taken a vow of poverty. This is certainly still true for the Benedictines. You see the effects of this asceticism. You also see the suffering of voluntary poverty, but you also see the freedom that comes with it. And, strangely, the lack of freedom, which can be a liberation, not always, because maybe you learn for the first time, as Landy did, how much you depend on others. It cracks the mask, the illusion of autonomy and self-sufficiency. The monks and nuns who've taken vows of poverty, they did it for life though. So I went to the big Meet the Artist thing at the end of the exhibition, and I asked the question to him. I said, have you not reflected on religious life? And he said to me very honestly and boldly, I hadn't made the connection before, and it amazed me. Yeah? Someone giving up all their possessions, how could they not think about the monks and nuns of the desert or of the Benedictine monasteries? Yeah. They did it for life. He did it for a few weeks. And also, again, this work of art is about transience, temporality and death. All the time we're having to let go. Every moment the present becomes the past. This is what it is to be in time. Yeah? Heidegger's phrase, we are beings in time. We are thrown into this world of time. And we cannot stand still. This goes back to Greek philosophy. We're in a river that's moving past us. Yeah? We can't stand in the same river twice, because as soon as we breathe, we're in a different part of the river. To be human, to live in time, is to let go by definition. We're clearing out the danger of hoarding, but the danger of holding on too hard and throwing out too much. What's the right balance? Knowing that all will be lost eventually. It's also about burial. Where did all this end up? As landfill. It was buried. It went into the tomb. He put his possessions into the tomb before his body. and he's still alive. And finally, it's about making a new start and rising again. He built a new life. He collected together new possessions. He made new art. A lot to think about. Again, I found this profoundly moving. There's someone with a hammer smashing up one of his videotapes. There's a list. There's a bag with his teddy bear. And there are some sketches of his possessions that he did. There's his car. Right, finally, my last fifth work of art, Ron Haselden, Echelle, which I think was originally... No, I don't think this was originally. I saw this at the Lumiere exhibit. Did some of you go to Lumiere this year?
No.
Oh, it's the greatest exhibition in London. Did you enjoy it? Yeah. So this is the 4 nights, 3 or 4 nights, when you have light exhibitions in the night time of London. So this is a pink neon ladder, which has been exhibited in a number of different places. But this year, this was the inspiration, the inspiring choice. There it is. Look, so go back to the ladder, because the photo's a bit blurred. And there it is this year at Lumiere, on the spire of St Martin in the Fields in Trafalgar Square. It was magnificent. Look, this doesn't need much interpretation. Yeah? A ladder is so full of symbolism, I could spend an hour talking about it. Yeah? Philosophically, humanly, situation comedy, Shakespeare, Bible. You tell me. We could have a wonderful discussion afterwards about ladders. What I love here is that the spire is already pointing to heaven. That's a spire. It's already reaching up, bursting through the skies. The Tower of Babel, the pyramids, the skyscrapers, the Burj Khalifa, the newest, tallest building in the world, which is soon to be in Saudi Arabia, isn't it, when it's finished, I think? The spire is already about transcendence. And what I love about this is that it's a symbol on a symbol. It's the artist saying, you can go even higher than the spire. You can climb this. You can't. It's not just about pointing to heaven, it's about climbing to heaven. And I love that. And I love the fact that it's too high to see, and so many people missed this. They went to see the main exhibition in Trafalgar Square. Do you see where people are looking on the photo? I took this photo. Yeah, they're all looking forward into the main exhibition, and they're missing the ladder that goes to heaven, or wherever you think it's going. This is literally my final choice, a glimpse of the transcendent. It's literally lifting us up into heaven. It's too high to reach, and yet if we can reach it, it takes us into the clouds, into the skies, into the stars. It's magnificent. And for us as Christians, as I say, without going into every ladder in English literature, this is Genesis 28, Jacob's ladder. Jacob dreaming and the angels of God descending and ascending. This is the Gospel of St John, when Jesus says to Nathanael, I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. For Christians, Jesus is the ladder. He's our way to heaven. Is it kitsch? Of course it is. Yeah? A pink neon ladder, you can't get more kitsch than that. Is it pop art? Is the glorious transcendent, trans everything, transcendence, everything you want to wrap around that word. Is the glory of this meaning and this word, is it undermined by the genre, the medium, by the neon lights? Yes and no. That's what's so fun about it. I'm not sure it matters. I think the beauty of this is it's partly tongue-in-cheek, but that doesn't make it contradictory. I don't think it undermines the joy and the delight and the lightness and the beauty. And actually, you needed a neon light because it was dark. So in the darkness of the night sky, the ladder, it's not that the ladder was lit up. Do you see the beauty of this? The ladder itself was the light. It's like Jesus. It's not that Jesus is illuminated. He is the light. His face shines like the sun. So just, so much beauty and provocation there. Right, there's my 5. There's a close-up. I'm glad I've got that. You can see the rungs, yeah? The close-up of the I think that's the same spire, although I'm doubting. No, it is the same spire, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think so. Right. And there's a summary of the works. Let me just read them to finish so you can collect them together. Julian Opie's Shider walking, the every man, every woman figure in Carnaby Street. Mark Wallinger, Ecce Homo, the figure of Jesus on the 4th plinth. Doris Salcedo, Shibboleth, the crack in the turbine hall. Michael Landy, breakdown, destroying all his possessions in the CMA shop. And Ron Haselden, a shell situated on the spire of St Martin in the Fields. 5 magnificent works of art. I'm sorry you can't go to see them all, but you can look them up. I've got a book that's got some articles and essays about them, and you can go to see Shider walking, and maybe we can go and see that this evening. But all of them, this is the summary, raising and provoking beautiful, beautiful questions about what it means to be human, what it means to be created, and what lies beyond, what is the meaning of the transcendent. Thank you very much.